My name is Ian Gavigan. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a graduate student at Rutgers University, New Brunswick in the Department of History. I'm also an executive council member of Rutgers AAUP-AFT, Local 6323, the Union of Graduate Workers, full-time faculty, librarians, postdocs, and counselors at the State University of New Jersey. Thrilled to be here with our sibling union, the PTLFC AAUP-AFT, our union of part-time lecturers at the university, as well as a whole host of unions, allied organizations, and committed higher education workers and allies from around the country. We're here today at the end of a 3-day summit that has brought together more than 75 union locals representing more than 300,000 workers across this country. People have come to us from more than 30 states, and we have had an outpouring of interest and support and excitement around a vision and a platform for organizing to win a transformed higher education system. And I'll read the very first sentence. We envision a future in which higher education is treated and funded as a social good and universal right. That's what's driving us. And we've got a real wonderful slate of people ready to speak to you, leaders of our unions, who are the core of this process, representing the diversity of our movement, of job type, of race, of gender, of geography. And I'd like to move us directly into our lineup. And so first, I'd like Kowal, president of UUP, of the SUNY system.
Okay, thanks. And first, I want to salute you, and I want to salute all of the staff who did just a remarkable job preparing for this event, and then to be able to pull it off. As you have said, drawing people from all across the country, and indeed some folks from overseas, and then to have the kind of productive discussion, really productive, in coming together to form a foundation document, which will be part of a movement that is so necessary right now. And I just want to take a minute again to kind of circle back to where I started 2 days ago, because it's my firm belief that for this movement to really revolutionize higher education in the United States, it is vitally important that we create the means whereby what we are talking about, what we are proposing, what we are fighting for will yield stronger, healthier communities in which we live and work. Public higher education, any kind of higher education, does have the means to solve all of the challenges that we face as a society today. But I think it's crucial that when we, as higher ed proponents, as advocates, as those who have made our lives about education in these communities, we have to realize that to form legitimate, truth-based coalitions, which are going to be necessary, we have to come up with proposals and ideas that are going to take care of the problems that Americans, and in fact, humans around the world, are facing. That's the way to real success for the long run. I think that if we only focus internally and narrow that internal vision too far into our own constituencies, whatever they might be, I think we're doomed to failure. But I think the ambition of the vision that we have seen produced over the last 2 days points us in a direction of a grander scope. That's what the challenge that I offer to all of us. And it's a challenge I've offered to UUP and all of our members. We have to take on the big challenges because we can do it. And that is a short way to success. So thank you to all who have participated. And I am excited by the work to come. Thanks, Ian.
Fred, thank you so much. And your union being a wall-to-wall union representing all workers, we want this. That's what this is about. This is about organizing across difference, which has been one of our informal slogans. And so to continue that conversation, a leader of the higher education labor movement, especially among community colleges, I want to invite Colena Sesanker, political director of the SEIU 4Cs union in Connecticut.
Hi all, and yeah, this has been really quite a lift, and it's one that we did together. And I just want to say thank you to all of us for being here and being committed in this way. What we're seeing here is a a group of people on the front lines of higher education across the country defending it as a common good. And that's actually saying something, right? At this point in history, what we find is that that's no longer something that we can take for granted. Higher education has been transformed. Its very structure has been transformed in a way that we can no longer assume that its net effect on our students is a benefit, that we can no longer assume, take for granted that it will continue to be the case that what we provide is straightforwardly advancing the interests of our students, our communities, our nation, right? So we have to fight for that at this moment, and it's urgent, and we're here for the moment, which is amazing. And you know, the reason for this is that the problems that we all face, it's amazing when we sit in these breakout groups that I could be talking to someone across the country and I'm like, are you at my college? Are you in my, in my state? We're facing the same problems nationwide. And it has to do with the withdrawal of support on state levels and sort of universally. And that leaves us reliant on private interest in such a way that it undermines our ability to forefront the good of the people that we actually serve. So we have to fight that from top to bottom. And, part of that is the way that we are employed, our ability to have the security to actually serve and serve our students, to authentically educate them without fear of reprisal, etc. So, and I think we also need to just keep in mind that these changes are happening at the moment where higher education has become available and accessible to more categories of people than ever before. And that the prestigious universities are not necessarily, the well-endowed universities are not necessarily facing these issues. So the net effect of this can be increased divisions of class and race and every other category. So it is so important, this fight that we're fighting. It's not just for our good, it's for the good of the country itself. And I'm just excited to be doing this with everyone.
Thank you, Colena, and your work to really emphasize that we have to work across the 2- and 4-year systems and embrace all of it is key to this whole project. So we really appreciate that, and it's at the center of what we're working on. Another piece that's at the center of what we're working on is ending the crisis of contingency for faculty and staff across higher education. More than 75% of higher education instructors right now are contingent workers, adjunct workers. And so I'd like to invite Bryan Sacks, Vice President of the PTL-FC of Rutgers AAUP, a leader at the heart of the movement of organized adjuncts, to kind of speak on that portion of our vision and platform and what that means for the future.
Thanks, Ian. I've been happy to be a participant in this process. I've really, I'm not one to use superlatives in these areas, but I really have been awed by the work that you've done and that Amy's done and others associated with this to bring something as multifaceted and large together in as quick a fashion as you've done here. And so I can't thank you enough and the other organizers at the core of this for bringing this together and starting something as important as this. I don't want to speak for a long time about the aspects of the platform that have to do with contingency, beyond saying that I'm very proud and heartened to be associated with a document that has, to my eyes, strong, clear language about the need to end contingency and to not leave any contingent workers across the academy behind in any gains that we make through building this platform. That, to me, is critical. We know what the conditions are that contingent faculty and contingent workers at the academy have faced going on 40 years or more. It's coincided with the rise of a top administrative layer at the university that consumes greater and greater amounts of resources, right? It's happened at the same time, pretty much, that a more or less, to this point, permanent underclass of instructors has been has been generated too. And that's not tolerable. It's not tolerable that in our systems of higher education, so many of us, a majority, as you've said here, of workers, have to think about whether or not they'll be associated with their university, with their college, with their place of work the next term. They're offered literally nothing in the way of security. It's not presented that way to students most of the time. Students see us as the equal here. I'm talking about contingent faculty. Students see us as more or less the equal of their tenured and their more secure faculty. And they treat us, students, that way, asking us to sit on committees, asking us to write letters of recommendation, asking us to be the professors in the full way that they see us to be. And of course, the vast majority of us are only too happy to do that. But we haven't been compensated that way, and we haven't been respected by university administrations in the way that not only we deserve, but which will enrich the educational experience of those students. And so I'm deeply grateful for this coming together as leader of the largest adjunct union in New Jersey and one of the largest in the country, and want to pledge our support and our effort to the continuation of what we started here today. So thanks again to everybody involved.
Thank you, Bryan. We are putting not just an analysis of the situation, but a commitment to take action at the national level to end this crisis that you so eloquently described. And we're so lucky to have you here. I'd like to now ask the co-president of University Campus Workers Georgia, Jill Penn. We have the privilege again to hear you next speak about the stakes of this project for you and for where you and your colleagues are.
Well, thank you, Ian, and thank you for including me in this conversation. I'm Jill Penn, co-president of United Campus Workers of Georgia. Our local was formed in 2016, and we have additional United Campus Workers chapters, locals in Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, South Carolina, Colorado, and Arizona. We are a wall-to-wall union, which means we accept into our membership faculty, staff, students, postdocs, part-time, full-time, clerical workers, dining workers, faculty maintenance workers, anyone who gets their paycheck from one of the 26 public colleges and universities in Georgia can be in United Campus Workers of Georgia. And of course, each job category has their unique issues, but we do have many of these issues in common. And the root of it all is the chronic underfunding of higher education. So for example, in Georgia, higher education workers have not had a cost of living adjustment since 1990. More recently, after the 2008 housing crisis, our state cut the higher education budget, furloughed workers, and even in 2019, we still hadn't recovered from those budget cuts. Then in 2020, our higher ed budget was cut again by 10% due to the COVID pandemic. 2,500 workers lost their jobs. The people who lost their jobs were disproportionately Black and or women working in service and clerical positions and also part-time faculty. At the same time, student enrollment in the whole state of Georgia increased for our public colleges and universities. So we lost workers. We need more work done, and we have fewer workers. So now that means the staff are doing jobs of 2 to 3 workers. It's not fair to them. And it also hurts the quality of education that we can offer. There's no getting around the fact that our working conditions are students' learning conditions. Thank you.
Jill, thank you so much for elevating and for clarifying the stakes for us. 13% of higher education workers lost their jobs during COVID, nearly 700,000 workers. And Jill has put it really beautifully and strikingly for us, and reminded us that the action we're going to have to take is far beyond just traditional action, that we have to do work and build power, and we're going to be doing that across the country, even where there aren't the same collective bargaining rights as some of us are used to. So next, building on everything Jill said, I'd like to invite Santiago Sanchez from a worker organizer with the Washington University Grad Workers United to share his perspective.
Hello, y'all. I'm Santiago. First and foremost, thank you for doing this. Like, this is incredible. Like, we're making it. We're gonna make it credible, but thank you all for being here and for your job and for your work and for your time. My name is actually Santiago Rozo Sánchez. I am at the Washington University United Undergrad and Grad Workers Union, WUGU, and I am from Colombia. I use he and el pronouns, but the thing I'm telling you is I'm from Colombia. I'm here to remind you about the important role that international people do have in universities. We are a big part of grad workers. We have a lot of undergrad, like they're going for our money. And I come from a country that is, let's say, dangerous at worst for unions. They've killed at least 200 union members and leaders in the last couple of years. And things, I don't know if you know, we're still in national strike now, 2 months and change going. Hopefully we'll keep it that. And to this, I'm going to tell you that unions here have done actually a lot for international students and international peoples. They've helped after like former administration brought to migration issues have become more and more difficult. And I want us to remind that like this is an organizable, incredibly organizable part of the population. And that with them, we're gonna remind, as like you were saying before, that humans all around the world could benefit from this. And it is really, really important to recognize the urgency of what we're doing, not only locally, but like, and not only in the United States, but like in a broader sense of like what happens here with higher education will actually be important more broadly, that our super localized Missouri struggles, your struggles in Georgia, are actually part of a collective world-like struggle right now. I wanted to invite us to like keep going together, broaden our coalitions, as everybody was going to say, and remember that we have only till September 22 of 2022 to get this going. We're in a supposedly pro-labor government, and we need to push them to do the right thing. Since the 70s, this hasn't happened in the United States, and this is a really, really incredible moment. We need to make it credible, and as you've been saying, organize across sectors, broaden our coalitions, and remember, international students, international workers will be there for you if you try to listen to them and ask them to allow them to speak their own languages sometimes. Thank you so much and have a good one.
Thank you, Santiago. And thank you for reminding us of not only the central role and importance of engaging international workers and students, but also the fact that we are in a moment of opportunity to take national action, to win national results. And we're going to do that. I'd like to turn now to Donna Murch from Rutgers AAUP-AFT, chair of the People of Color and Media Narrative Committees, to help us give some perspective for how this effort is grounded in kind of history and commitment and where we're going.
Thank you so much, Ian, and thank you to all the participants in this remarkable conference. It has just been amazing. We've had over 400 people who have registered and hundreds who have participated from all different categories of academic workers and staff coming together in a labor summit to talk about the future of higher education. One of the most important takeaways from this summit is that higher education is often misunderstood. It's thought of a kind of elite ivory tower that very few people participate in. But in actual fact, these campuses are major sites of employment for all kinds of communities across the country. They are purveyors of a social good that are essential for families and for young people to have a future. It is thoroughly knit into the fabric of our lives. And we need to think about it in that way, both in terms of its economics, the role that it plays as a major employer, and the kinds of essential right of education that it provides to people. I teach at Rutgers, which is 100,000 people total. 70,000 students and 30,000 workers, 2/3 of which are unionized workers. So it's important that we think about higher ed through the lens of labor. All kinds of people who work labor, and this is a major site of it. COVID has been an unprecedented crisis. We all know that. We're all still sorting out the things that have happened over the past year. And it has, of course, been a terrible crisis for higher education. It has thrown many of the poorly endowed and less elite campuses into the question of their own survival. It is, and as others have mentioned, we've had over 700,000 people lose their jobs, almost 15% of people that work in the sector. So it has been a terrible and a difficult time, but it has also been a time of revelation, which has brought people together to see their common interests and to think about all the different kinds of labor unions and workers that make campuses possible and have them come together in a spirit of solidarity to identify with one another and to think about higher education as a universal good, a social good, and a universal right. I think one of the lessons that we can take away from this moment is also the importance of state funding. The federal government stepped in first with the CARES Act and later with HERF and provided monies to colleges and universities to help them make it through this past year. This should not only be done in a moment of crisis. In order to make higher education affordable for students, student debt now is the single biggest source of debt in the American economy. It's essential that we have both state and federal funding, and also in order to provide living wages for workers, not to see the university as a site of real estate development or private equity or a bank which holds its value and worries most about its bond rating. Its core function is to provide higher education, living wages, and service to a community. So I am incredibly excited about this labor summit. I think that it has a real possibility of transforming higher education at a moment when it is desperately needed. The American economy has changed. Getting a higher education degree is often essential to earning a living wage. So we need to treat it as valuable. The entire country is having a discussion right now about infrastructure and future priorities. What more important infrastructure is there than education, both K through 12 and higher education? So it's been a remarkable event, participating and listening and talking across job categories and institutions. And I think that this is an urgent matter and real work has been done to create new coalitions and to move us forward. Thank you all.
Thank you, Donna, for that really powerful kind of closing frame for us. And thank you to everyone who's taking part in the summit. Thank you to legislative aides and press who are here. I'm gonna wrap us up now, and I just wanna kind of just pull out one last time the numbers of who we are, who we represent. Over 300,000 workers represented in this room from across 10 plus national and international unions, more than 75 union locals with 400 registered participants. We are building a movement around all of the priorities, the commitments that we've talked about winning federal funding and structural change for higher education, so that as our vision and platform state, that education is finally and truly treated and funded as a social good and universal right. We're going to end now, but with the spirit that this is just the beginning, and that we're going to keep coming together and keep fighting. And so with that, I'm going to release everyone to the weekend. And thank you so much for your presence and participation. And I can't wait to build and fight with all of us.